that can deal with all those things, right? And so it's just budgeting for those things. So yeah, to answer your question, I absolutely had stuff go wrong, still goes wrong every day. And that's, that's the business.
Wow.
Not to discourage anybody, because I love this business. I'm in it, but I think it's real important that you set your expectations that this is a pretty rowdy business model. And when you're dealing with, I always say, if you put hundreds of people together on a couple of acres to conduct their lives, man, life is going to happen, and it's going to be very interesting. And that's the case.
In the back of your mind, your dreams should be real, right?
Thanks all for tuning in to Dreamcatchers, where we make things happen. Dreamcatchers was formally launched to unlock the hidden potential in successful, self-motivated individuals who desire to take their life's work to the next level but need support to evolve. We are a collective group of professionals with various backgrounds that use our talents to assist those individuals in realizing their wildest dreams by providing education, inspiration, and direction. This podcast is where we share the lessons we've learned along the way to catching our dreams and give you some context around the how and the why to each approach to put you further ahead on the journey to catching your dream. Are you ready?
Hey everybody, and welcome to Myers Methods Presents Multifamily Missteps. I'm your host, Jerome. I've got the great pleasure of having Devin Elder with me today. How are things down in Texas?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Jerome.
And I'm excited to have you on. You guys have been crushing it for the past few years, and I just got my tumbler from you yesterday from being on your show, so I'm really, really, really stoked to have you on. Will you do me a favor and let the listeners know how they can get in contact with you?
Sure. The best way is on our website. That's DJETexas.com. That'd be the kind of the catch-all. We have lots of different stuff out there in the interwebs, but that's the easiest one.
Perfect. All right. So now that we got the unimportant stuff out of the way, let's dive into these stories. So I didn't do you much justice with my introduction. Let's tell the listeners a little bit about your background and what you're currently working on.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Devin Elder. I'm the founder and principal of a company called DJE Texas Management Group. We're based in San Antonio, and we're a vertically integrated multifamily firm, which means we do the capital component, and we're basically a private equity shop, but we also have the management company to run our properties. I started out grew up in San Antonio. I went to college. I got a job at one of the largest and best at the time employers in San Antonio, and I was really gung-ho about my corporate career. But the shine started to wear off. I spent about 10 years in corporate America, and not too far into that, started to get pretty disillusioned about the kind of lifestyle I was going to have. I could spend all day talking about that, but the short story is I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I searched around for the right vehicle. Real estate happened to be the right vehicle. And that's what I pursued. And I put all my heart and soul into it and all my pennies in my piggy bank and pushed all the chips on the table and went all in on real estate a number of years back. And so since then, we've flipped hundreds of houses. We've done developments. We've done, you name it, Airbnbs, rentals, but really most of what we do is multifamily. So we buy 100 to 300 unit apartment complexes, pretty much all in San Antonio. And we go make money for our investors and go put a lot of capital improvements into these communities and get them running like a top so that it's a win all the way around, right? It's a win for the residents in the community. It's a win for our investors, and it's a win for us as a firm, and we can continue to operate and grow. So that's kind of the condensed version of it, and that's what we do today.
Wow. So I got to ask, how do you go from flipping hundreds of houses to, I guess you did development in between, to apartments? Why'd you make those pivots? Because everybody feels like they've got the creme de la creme when they're, depending on which one you're talking to. If you're talking to a house flipper, it's the best thing in the world. You talk to an apartment syndicator, it's the best thing in the world. Developer says the same thing. So you made those pivots. What drove you to make those pivots?
Yeah, I'm real big on learning, I guess, is a simple way to put it. And so if something, and I'm real big on doing new things to gain new competencies, right? So if something looks like it could work, I'm often inclined to try it out. and say, can we do this? And along the way, I'm going to learn a bunch of stuff. And then I either gain a new capability, which has happened a bunch, or gain insight into, this isn't something I want to do again. And that's happened a bunch too. So I started out in houses because I didn't have any capital to start with. I started buying using the Burr method, which your listeners might be familiar with. You use a hard money lender at 3 points and 12% interest, which, people would consider, some people not in the business might consider loan shark money, but who else is going to give you 150 grand? So you get the money, then you go and do the renovations, and then you go to a regular bank at 4% interest and say, hey, refinance it out. And when I did my first one, I thought, oh my gosh, now I own a house. I didn't have much money to start with, but now I own a house that's cash flowing. I got real excited, and that's when I realized real estate was going to be my thing, and did a number of those. And then I said, okay, I can renovate these houses and pull it off. Let's try flipping them to get that big check quicker. And that's how I built up my capital base. Because multifamily, I was fortunate to know some guys early on that were doing big multifamily deals. And I saw the kind of money that it took, and I thought, that's where I want to end up, but I definitely can't start there. So I spent several years flipping houses, and the way I'd made the transition was I started getting into larger multifamily deals, and I just didn't have the time to do the houses. So I brought on a partner to run the operations basically for the house flipping business, so we keep it going. And now this year, as we're talking, Jerome, we're starting to wind that house flipping business down, which is great. I don't flipping house is probably my least favorite real estate strategy. But along the way, some development opportunities came up, building some houses, building some townhomes. I think those are just kind of one-off deals. That's not a focus. In general, I don't like stuff that doesn't cash flow. It's just, I'm not saying I would never do it, but flipping a house, you're just writing checks, and you hope there's one check for you at the end that covers everything and leaves some profit for you. Buying an apartment building, as you know, even if it's got a lot of problems, you might have 100 grand coming in every month right out of the gate. And that is a much different animal than $0. So the goal was always to end up in large multifamily deals. Took me a number of years to build up the capital and the track record and the experience to get there. And that's still probably my favorite investment and where we spend most of our time today.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You hit all the points, because I've done majority of that stuff as well. And yeah, I've been like, I think apartments is where it's at. And, it's interesting. You said 0 coming in, but when you're flipping, it's negative, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you got 0 revenue, but you certainly have expenses. Absolutely. So it's negative. Yep. That P&L on a flip house is like, every month's like -10, -15, negative, blah, 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 just all negatives. And hopefully there's one check at the end to make it right. But sometimes there isn't.
I've been there too. So, if you've done all these transactions, I know that everything's went perfectly, right? Everything that you put in a spreadsheet, every business plan you put together, it went absolutely as planned. Every single time.
To the penny every time. Yep.
Penny. Put together pro formas is I'm wrong. I don't know if I'm wrong on the good side or wrong on the bad side, but yep. I'm wrong.
Yep. Yeah, pro forma is a question of where am I wrong? Where am I most wrong? All right, we got this together. What am I missing? That's kind of my philosophy on underwriting. What am I missing here? What am I missing?
So when you're buying these big apartment buildings, have you had any issues? I mean, you might get $100,000 coming in month 1, but have there been any issues with them that you would want people to know about who are thinking about being in business or scaling?
That's such a great question. And here's my approach to it. And I think this is my philosophy around this is the reason I'm able to function on a day-to-day basis and maybe even be successful. The default is problems and issues every day. And I think, that's the default mode, right? So I think that's an important approach for people to have going into this is it's going to go wrong every day, right? And if you come from that expectation, then we're only disappointed in life when our expectations are violated. If you know you're going to have a 3-hour flight, that's no fun sitting on a plane for 3 hours and da 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 da. But if you expected that, great, you're fine. If you thought it was going to be a 30-minute flight that turns into a 3-hour flight, you are upset. Your expectations were violated. So if you go into a multifamily deal and you expect, man, we're just going to do this and this and this, and everybody's going to pay on time. We're not going to have any staff turnover. We're not going to have any violence on our properties. We're not going to have a fire. We're not going to have a budget come in over. We're not going to have a contractor steal from us. None of that stuff's going to happen. Man, you are going to be in a world of disappointment because your expectations are going to be constantly violated. So my default assumption is somebody's going to try to steal from me. Somebody's going to not pay rent. Somebody's going to quit on site, right? And then when those things happen, you go, yep, well, I expected that. So it's figuring out how to put in a plan that can deal with all those things, right? And so it's just budgeting for those things. So yeah, to answer your question, I absolutely had stuff go wrong, still goes wrong every day. And that's, that's the business. Wow. Not to discourage anybody, because I love this business. I'm in it, but I think it's real important that you set your expectations that this is a pretty rowdy business model. And when you're dealing with, I always say, if you put hundreds of people together on a couple of acres to conduct their lives, man, life is going to happen, and it's going to be very interesting. And that's the case.
Wow. So do you have any examples of some stuff that went wrong? You said, well, somebody will quit on site, but I mean, do you have anything that's like specific that's going on in your business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we just, we started a management company this year, which has been awesome. I'm really excited about it. But, when we let a management company go off 2 of our properties, we found just outright theft in the financials when we really started to dig into it, right? And all sort of stuff being padded in there. So on one hand, and we found, all these vendors that hadn't been paid for months, right? That we didn't even know about, this backlog of invoices. So, that's one of those things like, well, that's why we fired that company. So we could take control and have much more granular control of the properties and not have that issue, right? So that's one example. Is 2 properties we had ton of backlog of invoices. We had some of those vendors put liens on the property, and now to get the bank draw, the bank saying, hey, there's this lien for $20,000 on this property, so we've got to pay for the lien to get the draw. So, that's an example. This week I wrote a check for $50,000 to one of our properties to float a lien we had to pay off, and to take care of some of that stuff so we can get our draw, and I'll pay myself back. But that's the kind of thing where I think if you're looking to invest with an operator, you want that operator to have some capital, because for our company to just float $50,000 to get this thing taken care of while we wait for our draw money, it's not a big deal. But I'll tell you, man, there's a lot of operators that's a problem, and they go back for a cash call or something terrible like that. And so I think that's important for passive investors to understand is there's a lot of dollars in this business, pro and con, right? There's a lot of money to be made, but guess what? There's a lot of money to be spent, and there's a lot of operating capital to float too. So it's stuff like that. That's just a kind of I don't say daily occurrence, but that's just the reality of running apartment complexes in my experience. I had a management company tell us once, I said, hey, what about this and this and this? And the regional manager told me, listen, man, we are going to take care of it. You go drink a pina colada on the beach. We got it handled. And I was like, I'll tell you right now, that is not true. The fact that you're telling me that line makes me highly suspect of what you guys are up to. Oh man, go sit on the beach and drink a pina colada. So, that's an example of a recent thing.
Did they perform, or is that the group that you fired?
That's the group I fired. They did okay. And believe it or not, listen, they did okay. It's just that when COVID hit, we said, man, let's get a microscope and a floodlight out and find every penny of expense and see, can we eliminate it, right? We didn't know what was going to happen in March 2020. We didn't know. We didn't know if occupancy was going to 50%. We didn't know. Now, as you and I are talking, we got like a record with the S&P. We're in bizarro land, man. Nothing makes sense. But at the time we said, hey, we need to deeply scrutinize every expense and see what we can cut out.
What's up, tribe? It's your host, Jerome. I just want to let you know that we put together a free 15-point checklist for exiting the matrix. Jump on over to dreamshouldbereal.com in order to pick your free copy up. Let's get back to the show. So this vertical integration is something that I think a lot of people toy with, right? It's like, all right, well, I'm going to bring everything in-house. But when does it actually make sense, right?
Yeah, great question. I've thought about it for years, and I always said I'm not going to have a property management company because I didn't want employees. I didn't want the overhead.
Yeah, me too.
I personally did not have the expertise, right? I've been doing multifamily a long time, but I haven't been a leasing agent for 5 years. You know what I mean? I don't really have the deep in my bones knowledge to run an apartment complex at the day-to-day level, right? I've had a lot of experience as an owner, as an operator, but anyway, but what it came down to for me, and this is a very personal decision, was the opportunity to hire the right person. And that's what made me start a management company. I had a relationship with somebody that was in the business, and turned out he changed, left his company. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, oh, I'm looking around at some different things. I said, how about you come run a management company for me? And we worked it out. And so it really started with the person. It didn't start with this idea to start a management company. It started with the right person. I just said, hey, I got to have this guy, right? And I didn't even know, man, maybe I can hire him as an asset manager or whatever. But I started just putting pen to paper and said, no, we could start a management company. And so that's what we did. And that was the genesis of it for me. And it was looking at all these fees that were going out, management fees, which you're never going to get rid of, right? I mean, we pay 3 to 4% of revenue to management companies. And you're never going to get rid of that line item, right? Or you're never going to drive that line item down to 2 or 1%. Like you'd be foolish to try to do it. So I started looking at the revenue on a handful of properties where we wanted to get rid of this one management company. And I said, well, look, that amount of revenue coming in, I think we could start a company. And so that was a risk on my part. I'm very entrepreneurial. I wrote the check to start the new company, float the new company, and said, hey, I'm okay if it doesn't turn a profit for the first year. I'm okay investing in this company. And it turned out to be the right move at the time. And it was in the middle of COVID too, right? It was a scary decision, but I think as entrepreneurs, scary decisions are like a daily thing, at least for me, they are. So
yeah, without question. It's like, all right, sometimes I just close my eyes and push the button, right?
That's right. Yeah, you got to jump. You got to jump at some point.
Well, yeah, because if you don't, then you'll get stuck in a place where you're not able to actually make progress, right? You can get paralysis from the fear. You can get paralysis from not feeling like you have enough data or analysis done. And that's, I mean, you just got to go and you got to follow your intuition. And so, I haven't ever asked anybody this, but how much of this is gut? How much of it is intuition? And how much of it is strategery and data and really hard and fast numbers for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it is gut. Yeah, I'd say, half and half, right? Because certainly it's data, right? I mean, the numbers are going to tell you what to do, and you should be unemotional about those decisions. But I'll tell you, the reason I think I've been able to grow the company is because early on, I just decided that I was going to do a lot of stuff, a lot of activity, and some of it went great. Some of it didn't go great. I always say that I'm proud that we've always meet or beaten our investor return expectations. So I'm very proud about that. And I guard that track record above anything else. But personally, I've taken a lot of punches to the chin, right? So, and that doesn't necessarily mean lost money. I mean, it really only lost money on a handful of flip projects over the years. Most of them have done well. Flipping houses, though, just kind of, that's the game. I mean, it's a little more risky, I think, than a lot of other real estate approaches. But I think through having done all those single family transactions, I really started to get a feel for a lot of parts of the business. And I got to kind of exercise that intuition and put myself in a lot of situations over the years that as I started to scale up in properties, a situation would come up and I go, I've had this situation before. That happened to me a year and a half ago with this deal on this deal. And, there's this movie, The Italian Job with Mark, I forget his name. You know that movie?
I love, I love,
you know that movie?
I love the bank heist. I love all of
That's it. Yeah, so it's the bank heist, right? So the premise of the movie, they have those Mini Coopers. It's like an ad for Mini Coopers. This team goes and they do these small heists and and then at some point in the movie, Mark Wahlberg turns to this team and he goes, "This is just like The Italian Job. It's much bigger, but we've already done it." And that to me always stuck with me because I've said that to myself numerous times. Like, yeah, we're buying this $20 million building, but this is just like this other one we did.
Yeah.
It's like I've got the framework and the success on the smaller one to where I know we can do this on the big one. So I always say that to myself, like, this is just like The Italian Job. We've done this before. It's just bigger now. There's more zeros, but it's kind of the same thing. And so, that's hopefully an answer to your question. I don't know, maybe a little bit of a tangent.
It's awesome. And it took me down another path because I was like, okay, so you were flipping these houses and you still continue to run that business, but how big was your first apartment? Like some people go hunt Moby Dick when they try to get in, right? They want to take down the boat. And then others kind of work their way into it. I call it getting tuned in the boat. What was your approach? Because you seem to be a little more rigored or structured in like stepping up.
Yeah, it was 6 units that I bought by myself, me and the bank. And so I had a bank that had financed some of my single families. And frankly, the purchase price on this apartment, I think was $30K a door. So it was like 180 grand. That's like a house price. So for me, I was terrified at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stepping into multifamily, but it was like the price of a house. So, and there was no investors. And that was real big for me because I didn't want investors, why would anybody give me money? I didn't have any track record. So that was it, man. 6 units. And I ran it myself. I was sitting out there on Saturday signing leases with people in a pretty, I say rough area. I never felt like feared for my life or anything, but it was a low rents, man. Rents were 5.25, which in San Antonio is at the time really low. And we were able to get them up to 6.25. That made the whole business plan, but it was me out there doing all the work. And then, so after I did that little 6 unit, I partnered with someone that had more experience, which I think is a really important stepping stone, on a 75 unit. That was a total war zone property. And after I'd done those 2 projects, I said, yeah, the next one I bought was 130 units on my own as the primary sponsor. And I say on my own, but look, I had 30 investors on that deal. As a multi-million-dollar capital raise. But at that point I was like, I'm ready for this.
So what about those smaller deals got you to the place where it built your confidence and you said, I'm ready to do this?
I think it's just all an internal mental game. I think because the mechanics of it are just not that hard. But the mental game is big. I think if I could have flipped a switch in my brain to say, just go do it. It's like, okay, the execution's not that hard, but the mental game was really big. It's kind of silly because I counsel people to go for a bigger deal for a lot of reasons. If you can get 100 units and get a third-party manager on there, you're not going to be signing leases on Saturday. But part of my approach when I committed to being an entrepreneur was I'm all in forever. And so that's it. There was no, I'm going to test this out. Like people that dabble, they are not successful, right? People that are obsessed become successful. And I was absolutely obsessed. I'll be down there on Saturday signing a lease. Yeah, this is my investment. I bought it and it needs to work because I'm going to point to this one when I go do my next one. So it has to work. And so, that's kind of my approach. So I had to just prove it to myself. And it's easy for me to say now, go bigger, man. Go 100 units plus. But somebody's never done it. Like they may not be able to to understand that. There's this Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about this concept that anything that man can conceive and believe, he can achieve. So there's 3 steps, right? Conceive, believe, and achieve. And it's been my experience that the ends are pretty simple. Conceiving of the idea, I want to be worth $10 million. That's pretty easy. Achieving it, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's just a series of steps. The hard part is the believe part in the middle, right? You can come up with an idea, right? I want to build a rocket ship that goes to Mars. Okay, boom, you just came up with it, right? But the believing and convincing yourself that you can do it, that's the work in my experience. So I had to convince myself that I could take down this 130 unit deal or whatever. And that was, I just had to do it the slow, old-fashioned way of just building up to it. That's just how my brain works to be able to get there. I don't think you have to do that, but that's how I did it.
I think it's logical, right? I think we build up to things. I don't think you just start flipping 100 houses a year. I think you flip one and then you build up to that. I think you got to get a system and processes and again, get back to the right people. And that's the one thing that I don't think you can skip steps on is the work that it takes to build the network to be able to pull it off, right?
Right.
You had to have some track record to point to with those people that put money in the deal. Because if you said, hey, this is my first one, I'm going to go take down this 120 unit. How do we know you can do it, Devin? Oh, well, I listened to some books and I flipped some houses. Put the money. It's just for a lot of people that doesn't work. And forget the individual investors. I think the banks are really, really particular about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I was kind of amazed a few years ago where nobody cares what you did in single family. When you get over to large multifamily, nobody cares. But if you did one other large multifamily, you're in the club, but you flipped 100 houses, nobody cares. And I was always like, but that was a lot of work, guys. Like, somebody give me some credit here. Nobody cares.
Yeah, they didn't. And I thought it mattered what I did in corporate America too. Like, oh, I did this and I got this.
Sure.
I got this degree. I got this in the bank. Yeah. Well, have you done this project size with this business plan before? No, that's right. You're not qualified.
That's it. 100%. That is it. Yeah.
So the final question on this one is, what words of wisdom would you have for the listeners?
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it really depends what your end goal is, and for somebody listening, they are going to go out and become a real estate entrepreneur and make that their life's work. And if that's you, go all in. And I mean, all in, like commit to it and leave yourself zero alternatives, but to make it a success, which is super terrifying, right? So the other component is, you might not want to do that. You might be more of a invest passively and realize benefits of real estate. So if you're the type that you have good income, don't discount that. Don't be too quick to give up good income for some real estate dream, because you might have already worked hard and got a degree and got a good job or built a business where you're already making good income. Now you want to leverage that and get invested. And there's ways to do that passively or to be a key principal that are valuable and still keep your good income intact. So it just, Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. If you define your outcome, then you can reverse engineer it and work backwards. So there's a couple of things there, but those are kind of key points for me.
Wow. And so you said this twice. So I've got to ask, what does it mean for you to be all in?
Yep. Early on, it meant no savings, no retirement account, quitting a job with a family to support. Terrifying, right? Absolutely terrifying.
Wait. Say that again. I want to make sure I got it.
Yeah. No retirement accounts, right? Liquidated. Family to support, quitting a nice cush 6-figure job, right? To make this real estate thing work. And I don't see a lot of people volunteering that level of commitment, right? But now, look, it worked, right? We live a dream lifestyle that my wife and I say all the time. Could you imagine when we got married 12 years ago, that this is how we would live? Can you even imagine? You would have thought if we came from the future and told us our younger selves in 2008 when we got married that this is how we would live, there's no way, right? So it worked. But that commitment up front, it's like you got to go first, and then it works. It doesn't, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that level of commitment.
So this makes me think about, I'm a movie guy, right? So the Batman movie, when after Bane breaks his back and puts him in the hole, and he climbs up, and he's always got the rope tied around him, and he jumps to try to get from one side to the other, and he keeps falling.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he takes the rope off and he jumps, he makes it, and he's able to drop the rope down and free everybody else. This is the exact same thing, right? There is no safety net. There is no security. You're all in, and you either sink or swim. And I mean, it works for those who actually are willing to commit at that level, evidently.
I forgot about that scene. That's such an awesome movie. And I forgot about that scene. That's such a great analogy. And I think that's right. I was fortunate early enough at some point in my corporate career to get fired. And that was not fun, but that destroyed for me any illusion of having security in a corporate environment, because I was given my all in this role, right? And I thought if I could, and I was given my all in a way that I never had before, really given my all in this corporate role. It was very painful. And I look back now and it's cliche, right? That, oh, well, that pain was really the turning point. It sounds cheesy to say that, but without that level of pain as a driver, I wouldn't have made the decisions that I made, right? And I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. So that illusion of safety was destroyed for me. And I said, well, if I'm not safe here and I hate it, I can be not safe somewhere else and maybe I'll love it, right? And so that illusion of safety got destroyed for me, fortunately. And I just said, well, listen, if I'm not safe here, then let's go do something without a safety net that has the potential for big payoffs. And that's what happened.
Awesome, Devin. This was a great episode of the Missteps podcast. I'm a little biased, but just want you to know and all the listeners that this was amazing. So thank you again for being so generous with your time, and look forward to continuing to develop our relationship. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jerome.
Thank you for joining the tribe today. We would love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate, like, and share. Perhaps someone you know could benefit from what we've discussed. Until the next time, remember that your dreams should be real.